3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner, Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invitation this morning will be delivered by Dr. Bob Mullen from the Legacy Church of Christ in North Richland Hills. Welcome. Appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Commissioners. Please rise. God, thank you for this day in this free country in which we live, that the commissioners and judge will be able to deliberate the business of this county, make good decisions to bless the citizens and residents of the county. And I pray that this meeting would be able to be conducted well and that business be able to be done in a beneficial way that helps us all to be able to serve you. I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Agenda announcements, Mr. Mays.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several announcements for the Court this morning. The first is under the Administrator section. Item A1. This concerns a local agreement between the county and the hospital district for the provision of health care services. We're going to ask that we hold that particular item for 1 week. I'd like to make a comment on that. All the details have been worked out on this, and we're in agreement with, both sides are in agreement with this. What we're currently doing now is it's in legal, and we're just structuring the document. But everything that we've looked at, we're in agreement with the hospital district, and we'll have that for you for action next Tuesday. Members of the Court, we could go to also the Administrator section, item 8A15, which is the out-of-state travel request. We've included a revised request as it relates to that particular agenda item. If we could go to public health, which is item 8I4. This is a consent item. We're going to ask that we hold that particular item for 1 week. And finally, members of the Court, under the Purchasing Department, item 8J2, this is the annual contract for the purchase of police package vehicles countywide. We're asking that we hold that particular item for 1 week also. And then finally, members of the Court, just to remind you that at 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're going to have the ribbon cutting at the new maximum security facility. And we have a presentation down there, and that begins at 2 o'clock. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of September the 11th.
Move approval.
Second. A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have a proclamation on Family Day that will be for ratification only, and I'll move its approval. Second. Motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. I want to announce today that there's going to be a watch party. As many of you may or may not know, this Saturday in Galveston, there will be the commissioning of the USS Fort Worth, which is a new ship that the Navy will be commissioning. There's going to be a big crowd, I know, that is going from up here down there. The ceremony will begin, or the actual ceremony there will begin at 10. And for those who couldn't make it to Galveston, there's going to be a watch party being held downtown. And there are the details. It's going to be at Sundance Square from 9:30 until 12:30. Either bring your own chair or know that there'll be some there to rent. And Oliver's, as well as we'll have some food available, as well as some entertainment. So, what day? It's Saturday. You can go down there on Sunday or Friday, but there'll be something down there for you to see on Saturday.
There'll be a lot more room on Sunday.
There'll be a lot more room on Sunday. Picture won't be quite as good, but there'll be room on there on Sunday. So please, if you have a chance, I'm sure it'll be fun to be down and just down. If you haven't had a chance to be in downtown Fort Worth, whether it be in the evening or really even during the day, it's a neat place to just walk around. With that, then we'll move to the consent agenda. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, on item number 2, we're requesting action concerning the naming of the new maximum security jail in honor of former Sheriff Lon Evans. In our court communication, there is a resolution, and Your Honor, if I might ask that you read that into the record, and then Commissioner Johnson, if you'll come down, we have family here to present the plaque.
And I'll go ahead and ask the family to come forward. I think we have Marlon Sigeti, daughter, Kitty, daughter, and her husband Jim Lovelace, Peggy, a daughter, and Richard and her husband Richard Delaney, and then Brenda Johnson, a granddaughter. Did I cover everybody? Did I get everybody? Okay. And I'll read the resolution, and then Commissioner Johnson will bring the proclamation down there. Whereas among the colorful characters that make up Tarrant County's history, Lon Evans rises head and shoulders above most. And whereas Evans attended the Fort Worth's Polytechnic High School, where he was a standout athlete participating in football, baseball, track and field, while also playing drums in the Poly Band. And whereas he was a member of the TCU football team, where he played in the inaugural game of the new Amon Carter Stadium, and on the team that won the 1932 Southwest Conference Championship. And whereas Evans went on to play 5 years for the Green Bay Packers. That's just tough. Growing up as a Cowboy fan, it's just tough.
He was a tough man.
He was. My son was a big Packer fan, and we went up to, I'm kind of deviating.
You digress.
I'm kind of leaving the thing. But we went up to the Packer Hall of Fame and read about Lon, and so somewhere I went wrong with my son. Which won the World Championship in 1936, with Evans voted as the All-Pro twice and elected to the Green Bay Packer Hall of Fame in 1977. And whereas after his playing days with Green Bay ended, football continued to be a part of his life as he officiated at high school, college, and professional games for 3 decades. And whereas Evans was elected Tarrant County Sheriff in 1960 and went on to serve an unprecedented 6 terms, bringing a modern professional approach to the county law enforcement that included deterrence programs for youth as well as educational and vocational programs for inmates. And whereas he was years ahead of his time in his treatment and friendship of various ethnic groups, showing no distinction between race, color, creed, or social or financial status. And whereas after his retirement in 1984, Evans continued his involvement in the law enforcement, contributing his expertise to Tarrant County as a consultant and actively working for passage of a bond package to finance the new Justice Center and jail. Whereas the Tarrant County Commissioners Court wishes to pay homage and respect to Lon Evans for his years of distinguished service to the citizens of Tarrant County and to provide a permanent tribute to his stature as a beloved and colorful High Sheriff of Tarrant County. Now therefore be it resolved that henceforth the new maximum security jail be named the Lon Evans Correction Center in his honor, and that the appropriate steps are immediately taken to implement this order and resolution. In witness whereof, we have hereunder set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 18th day of September, 2012.
I move for its approval.
A motion is second. Please vote. The motion passes unanimously.
Could we ask the clerks to show the second coming from the entire court?
Yes, please.
present this to the family of a great man, a great friend of mine, and one that we can all be very proud of. So if y'all would like to come up and make any comments, this is for you.
While you're coming, I'd just like to say that Lon and my daddy were great friends.
Well, I think before we make the comments, we can get a picture. We can kind of get everybody in there. This is going to be interesting. Everybody try to get as close as possible. All right.
How are you this morning? Thank all of you very much for doing that. All right, we'll send you down there too. Any comments?
On behalf of our family, commissioners, Judge Whitley and J.D., I want to thank you very much. We are deeply honored for this lasting tribute, and somehow I feel my dad's presence today in the room, and my mother too. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Members of the court, we can go to item number 3 under the administrator's section. We're requesting that the court approve the sheriff and constable fee service fee that is scheduled to take place in calendar year 2013.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Collins?
Good morning, members of the court.
Good morning.
We have two action items. One is for the court to accept a recovery by Tarrant County of $116.75. We were a third-party payer. We filed a claim back in 2009, and it paid off. Ask that the court move to accept this.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is recovery of subrogation funds in the amount of $2,500.01, and we ask that the court accept the recovery and full settlement of the county's interests.
Move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bloom.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
We have two items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
Second.
A motion and a second. Receive and file personnel agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2, we're asking the court to approve plan choices, service provider selections, and the contribution rates for funding employee and retiree health care benefits in plan year 2013. So this is the time of the year, of course, that we come to the court and try to make some decisions about what plan choices we're going to have in place for next year for our employees and retirees and their dependents. And then of course, probably most important, what employees are going to pay, what our retirees are going to pay for those benefits. So you have quite a bit of information. I'll try to walk you through it as quickly and as easily as I can.
Do we have a copy of that in here?
Yes, sir, you should. We have extras if you need one, Commissioner. I'll wait until you find it.
We've got them on our electronic files.
I have it in my book too, I just didn't pull it out.
Okay, so the very first thing we want to talk about are plan changes for plan year 2013. These plan changes are outlined in Exhibit A, which is the very first document following your court communique. The first plan change that we're proposing for plan year 2013 would affect both the EPO and the PPO plans. As the court recalls, those are the two medical plans that are available to our active employees. The first item, we're recommending that we add a service to our plans next year called the Nurse Line Service. This is a service that employees or participants will have access to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll have access to a nurse advocate. Employees will be able to reach out to this advocate, ask questions about treatment, about medication, about life choices. Again, this is a step, an additional step that we'd like to take to try to educate our employees and provide them with resources that are available to assist them with their daily health care needs. Again, the way that this program is going to be designed, employees will have the ability to make contact with these nurse advocates. The nurse advocates, in return, will actually practice outreach to members as well, providing counsel when necessary. We do intend to have these services outlined in our enrollment materials. And, of course, we'll do additional educational sessions to ensure that employees are aware that this service will be available next year. So that's...
Can I ask?
Sure.
Tell me, define what a nurse advocate is.
Well, a nurse advocate will be an individual...
nurse?
Yes, will be a nurse.
An RN?
RN, maybe LVN? We believe it's RN. We've not gotten all of the materials yet, Commissioner, for this particular service.
That's fine.
But these are licensed professional nurses.
Okay.
And again, they will be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to assist employees,
They're like
assist members.
medical navigators, help people
Right. No, I just
find their way.
wanted to be sure it was a nurse and not,
It's a nurse.
okay.
We're talking about nurses. So if there are no additional questions, the second change that we're proposing for 2013, and this is in accordance and to ensure that we comply with the change in that's covered in healthcare reform. The plan will cover certain contraceptive products under both the EPO and the PPO outpatient pharmacy plan at a zero copay. Today, there are services, for example, I've just lost my thought. Well-Woman, for example. Those services today are provided at a zero copay. So this change will go a step further. There are some pharmacy items that are outlined there in your court communique, contraceptives. Those will be covered at a zero copay as well, effective 2013. And again, this is in accordance with changes that are required under healthcare reform. So this is just to ensure that our plan is compliant. Yes, sir.
So when you say that this change is implemented in compliance with the new requirement,
Yes, sir.
that means we have no choice.
That's correct.
We have to follow the letter of the law,
That's correct.
whether we like it or not.
That's correct.
Does that mean for a percentage of increase? No.
No.
It's not under, that's not, we're not having to follow a law on that.
Yeah, basically we have zero copay
Correct. Will be a zero copay.
for
Effective.
contraception.
This is basically changes in the plan, again, with regards to increases and things like that. That's sort of things that we'll talk about later, at least as far as next year goes. But it's all kind of tied to what we had talked about earlier about having early next year some recommendations on how we go about trying to curb our costs. I will tell you that yesterday we had our initial meeting, our conference call with our actuary, and that what had been a $229 million unfunded liability 2 years ago when they did their last actuarial report is now $359 million. And a lot of that is based upon we have slipped some in our percentages of share of how much we provide versus how much the employee provides, especially as it pertains to some of our retirees. We've gone a couple of years without, 3 years I think, without increase on some of them, and we're going to address that a little bit more fully. But right now, we're these first set of items that Ms. Glenn is going over are the changes that have come from the PEBC board as recommendations to each one of their member courts.
Thank you, Judge. The third item, we're asking asking the court permission to approve a program that's available under the pharmacy plan. It's called the Generics First program. And the way that the program works is it is meant to address what is called multi-source drugs, which are those drugs where you have a brand name drug with a generic equivalent. And of course, we're all aware that generic drugs cost less than brand name drugs. So the goal of enrollment in this plan is, of course, to try to help reduce costs where we can. What's important for the court to know is that with this program, employees will still have a choice. Employees will still have the ability to select a brand name drug. It will just cost them more if they do that. So we don't want to remove choice. Choice is still there. But the plan will pay less and the employee will pay less if they select a generic drug. So with this Generic First program, there will be a list of drugs. We don't have that comprehensive list available to us at this point. But with those drugs, there will be generic equivalents. Again, employees will have a choice. They can actually select a generic equivalent. If they don't choose to do that, then they will simply pay a higher copay for the brand name drugs. Today, just to remind the court, we have 3-tier copays. We have a $15 generic copay, and these are copays for a $30-day supply of meds. So today, you pay $15 for a 30-day supply of generics, $25 for brand, and then $50 for non-preferred brand, which are brand drugs that are not a part of the formulary. So the list is comprehensive. That list is not going away. The copays remain the same. The only thing that we're saying is that we'll be working with employees to let them know that this program is available, and again, it will cost them less if they select a generic drug. One last comment about this program. We certainly we're familiar and have had experiences with employees in the past where their physicians have said that generics are not as effective as brand name drugs. If that's the case, Express Scripts will take phone calls from those treating physicians and have the discussion about why the brand name is appropriate, and then of course the employee will be given the brand name at the appropriate copay. So the key is we want to try to reduce costs where it's feasible to do that, where an employee and the physician require a brand name drug, that will be provided as well.
You said at the appropriate copay.
Yes, sir.
If the physician determines that for some reason he or she is going to prescribe the brand name drug,
yes, sir,
either because they deem the generic to be not as effective, or there is something in the generic that the patient is allergic to, for example. If the physician determines that the brand name must be the prescribed drug, what is the copay?
The copays would be $25 for the drug if it's on the formulary.
So the patient is penalized in that.
It's the same copays that we have today.
But the patient does not have a choice.
The patient would not have a choice in the example that you've given. Today and next year, even under this program, the employee would pay $25, what they pay today, for a brand name drug that's on the formulary, and $50, same next year as it is today, for a brand drug that's not on the formulary. So the copay is exactly the same
Today. But
as it is today.
Another option to obtain
Absolutely.
generic at a $15 cost instead of $25.
Correct.
Well, if you're going to charge the patient, the employee, the same copay for the name brand next year as you're charging this year, why go through the exercise of having somebody from Express Scripts visit with the physician? It's not going to change anything.
And that's a good question. One provision that I did leave out, Commissioner, if you look at your document, your Exhibit A, if you have a situation where an employee just elects elects the brand, the doctor's not saying that they have to have it. If they elect the brand over the generic, then what your communique says or your attachment says is that the employee then will pay the non-preferred brand copay, which is $50, and then that employee will also be responsible for the difference between the generic and the cost of the multi-source drug. So the penalty would be if the employee has a choice, okay, and just elects the brand, is that you pay the $50 and then you pay the difference between the generic and the brand cost. Now, when there's not a choice, the doctor says you've got to have it, the generic's not as effective, then the employee is not looking at paying the difference. So that was,
provision makes a whole lot
yes,
of
and I apologize, I left that out. That's a very good point. So that's the generics first program. If there are no additional questions, then let's move on to our flexible spending accounts. We have a couple of proposals that we're discussing with the court today that are effective 2013. Again, today, under flexible spending accounts and the provisions that are provided to employees who establish those, employees can set aside up to $5,000 in their reimbursement account for health care costs. And of course, these would be things like deductibles, co-payments. These would be those expenses for the employee as well as any dependents. So today it's $5,000. Under health care reform, employees are going to be limited to a maximum of $2,500. So no longer can employees set aside $5,000. They'll only be allowed to set aside $2,500. Now, it's important for the court to know that separate and apart from the $2,500, the court will recall all employees receive a contribution from the county. So all employees receive a set amount for just that goes into their flex account. So if you're an opt-out, if you don't have medical coverage, you receive $1,440 a year. That will be separate and apart from the $2,500. So that doesn't change. The contributions that the county is making on behalf of employees will not change. It's just that the employee contribution will be limited to $2,500. And again, this is the result of health care reform. So, Commissioner Wynn, to your point earlier, this is not something that we have a choice about.
What's the logic behind that law? Do you know?
Changing it to 2,500?
From 5,000 to 2,500?
It's called, we want more taxes.
Yeah, it's a revenue issue for the federal government.
And some would argue it's the government attempting to gather more revenue to pay for the health care program. But it's, as GK just indicated, it's just a revenue generator. And so that will be effective, again, 1/1/2013. The other provision that the court should be aware of is currently employees, and I guess for the past 2 or 3 years, the court approved 2 or 3 years ago what we call a grace period under our flex account. And what employees have been able to do for the past couple of years, and let me step back for a moment. So with our flexible spending accounts, the plan year runs from January through December. And traditionally, employees, whether it was their own money that they were contributing or money that the county contributed on their behalf, your money goes into the flex account, and employees were in a position where, and still are, where you, whatever money you set aside, you use it or you lose it. It's called a use it or lose it provision. So a few years ago, the court actually extended what we call the grace period so that employees could, following that traditional calendar year, for a period of January through March 15th, could still incur expenses and then reach back to those monies that had been set aside for the previous year. So that was called a grace period. What we're proposing in 2013 is the elimination of that grace period. And the reason for that is that for 2014, we are going to be coming back to the court with some proposals, with some plans, as the judge mentioned, to try to address rising health care costs. One of the vehicles that we're looking at and have been discussing for some time is something called a health savings account, and many of you may be familiar with these accounts. Those employers that have health savings accounts in place, and this is a requirement in the law, you cannot have the health savings account and a flexible spending account coexist. You can't have them both. So we would eliminate the grace period. We would eliminate that grace period because, again, we can't have the flexible spending account and the health spending account exist at the same time. So what we're proposing to do is that when we go through enrollment this year for 2013, we'll communicate to employees that the grace period will no longer be effective, so you'll no longer be able to reach back and get those account or those monies. It's a little bit confusing. So I guess what's important for the court to know is we're proposing the elimination of the grace period so that we can come to the court and hopefully propose for 2014 a health savings account. And we'll have a lot more discussion about what a health savings account is. And again, it's a vehicle that many employers use, and it's a consumer-based account where we require the employee to be more actively engaged in their health care, again, in the hopes of helping to drive down some of our health care costs. So that was a very long-winded way of saying we're going to eliminate, or we're proposing to eliminate the grace period. And again, the two simply can't coexist.
Will it be the proposal, your prognostication, that the
Health savings account?
No, the
HRA, health retirement account?
Flex?
The flexible spending
Yes, sir.
account will go away in 2014, or will the employee have a choice between the HSA and the flexible spending account?
What we've talked about at PEBC is to actually begin in the spring of next year to actually have serious discussions and each entity to come back to go back to their respective governing agencies with a proposal for a health savings account for 2014. And so if that's the case, and I believe that it will be the case, then we can't have the health savings account and the flex account coexist. And so that would mean that the flex spending account would go away in 2014. That's the plan.
So would the health savings account still be with pre-tax dollars?
Yes.
It takes on the same characteristics as your flex account.
And again, Commissioner, we'll have lots of discussion about that, and so, but again, that's a few months out. But we did not want to create a situation where we have employees anticipating and expecting this grace period when there's a very high probability that they won't be able to access those monies.
Well, you ought to tell them that it's going away, period.
I hear you. So, if there are no additional questions about that, then the last plan change that we're proposing for 2013, currently our long-term care program is provided by Prudential. As the court may recall, long-term care is a program where employees can participate and actually secure coverage for nursing home care, at-home care, or assisted living care. This is a program that we've had in place since January of 2005. And what will be new for 2013 is that Prudential is actually rolling out what they're calling an enhanced program. It's called Solid Solutions. The primary difference between Solid Solutions and the current long-term care coverage that's in place is that the daily rates or the daily benefit rates, they're called, will actually increase. They'll be greater under this new plan. So what we're proposing to do is that in 2013, certainly, and as we go through enrollment, we'll communicate to employees that certainly the current plan is available for those who have it and want to keep it. There will be no rate increases, no changes to plan benefits. The Solid Solutions plan, again, will communicate if current members want to upgrade, they can certainly do that. There is no medical underwriting for those who currently have the coverage and want an upgrade, so there'll be no medical question, no medical underwriting questions asked. For our new enrollees, the employees will have guaranteed issue. So if you're brand new and you thought about long-term care before but didn't make a decision to join or to secure the coverage, you can certainly do that in 2013. For employees, there's no medical underwriting. There will be underwriting, however, for family members. And if the court may recall, this program, I said employees, but the program is actually available to employees, spouses, in-laws. It's a pretty extensive list. So again, no medical underwriting for employees, but there will be underwriting for family members. And again, this is in 2013. The last comment about the long-term care, will also be sure to communicate to our employees that after August the 1st of 2013, Prudential will no longer offer these programs. Apparently the market for long-term care has changed significantly over the last several years. A lot of vendors that have provided this coverage no longer provide this coverage. So for employees who want to upgrade or who want in for the first time, it will be important that they do that during this enrollment cycle, because again, it will not be offered after August the 1st of 2013.
So with that, those outlines are the plan changes that we're talking about implementing in 2013. And so if there are questions, now would be the time to ask those, or if the court would not mind, then maybe we take a vote on the plan changes and then we'll get into our rates.
Move approval of the plan changes.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any questions or discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. As the judge just mentioned, now we'll get into discussion of rates. If you'll look at your Exhibit B1, you'll recognize this format, or hopefully you recognize this format. This is the format that we've used in years past. You'll see the plan description on the left side of your document. The 2012 rates are in the middle. These are monthly rates. And then the 2013 rates are the far right column. And I hope that your documents have a highlighting of some color. Mine are yellow. And so those rates we've highlighted because there are adjustments, there are increases, I guess in one or two cases actually a decrease, but there are changes in those rates. All of the other rates that have not been highlighted, that simply means that the rate for 2013 is exactly the same as it is in 2012. So unless the court is interested in discussing some of the plans where we have no rate increases, I'll focus on just those where we are looking at increases. So the first increase we see is our vision plan, which is item 3, first page of B1. And you see the rates for 2012 and then the proposed rates for 2013. This is the vision coverage. These rates are 100% employee paid, so the county does not contribute to this plan. So those are.
And this vision plan is an eyeglass plan. It doesn't cover things like glaucoma, which is a medical condition.
That's correct. Now, that's correct, Commissioner. What this plan will cover, it covers like routine eye exams. It will cover eyeglasses, as you pointed out, contact lens. Actually, I used one of these providers just to take my son who lost his second pair of glasses. And it was very quick. We went in, he had an eye exam, I paid the appropriate copay, and we were out, and he had a pair of glasses. You also receive an allowance I believe it's an annual allowance for eyeglasses. I can't remember how much it is, but there's also an allowance that's provided. So many employees actually, if they enroll in this benefit, can actually go in, have their services provided, walk out with a pair of eyeglasses or contacts, and have only paid just their copay. So my experience has been it's been a very good benefit. The next.
Who determines the changes?
Pardon?
Who determined the rate increase? The provider?
The vendor did, yes, sir. VSP.
That's a 35% increase.
Yes, sir.
Tina, does
Yes,
the, kind of what I guess Roy was talking about, glaucoma, from cataract surgeries and things like that?
Those
Is that
are-
under our normal medical?
Those are covered under our medical plan. Yes, sir. We have coverage for those. They're just under those services. They're under the medical plan. So the next increase, yes,
Do we
sir.
want to take these one by one, or how do we want to? Anybody? I guess we'll just
What
go
I
ahead.
was proposing
Go
to do,
ahead.
Judge, was just to, again, identify where we have adjustments, changes, and then ask for a vote at the end. Okay? So that,
Well, I don't think we have an option on these, do we? That's going to be their rate if they take it.
correct.
The only option is not to.
Not to provide, not to provide the benefit.
So I don't think that's an option. Right, so item 3 is a moot point.
That's the way I look at it.
It is.
Well, we can either approve the moot points, or we can not approve them, but one way, we're eventually going to have to approve them. So let's go ahead and go through and.
Go ahead and, I'll move to approve item 3.
I'll second.
We have a motion a second. Well, okay,
That 1, 2, and 3.
yeah, if you don't have a problem, let's make it 1, 2, and 3, because there's no changes down
No
there.
changes on 1 and 2, but I'll include that.
I second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
The next change that you'll see is item 4. You'll see it's the charge for the nurse line program that we discussed earlier. That charge is 90 cents per employee per month.
Keep going.
Should I go? Okay. Number 5, item 5 is our stop-loss premium. You'll see the increase there. We're currently at $21.01. The increase will be to $24.01. Again, this is a per employee per month rate. This represents a 14% increase. Item 9, we've already...
And we don't have any say-so.
No, sir, not as long as...
What did we on 4?
We could have chosen not to take advantage of the nursing home.
Not to take advantage of the nurse line, which is 90 cents per employee.
Per employee per month.
And who pays for that?
The county does.
does.
Yes, sir.
100%.
Yes, sir. Item number 9, long-term care. We've discussed that. Again, it's offered by Prudential. We don't have all of the information as yet, and so our description for 2013 would be, again, for those employees who are currently enrolled, they'll pay the exact same rates in 2013 as they paid in 2012, and of course, then we'll have the upgrade for 2013.
And again, on that particular one, we're not paying for any of that. That's all paid for.
That's all paid for by the employee. That's correct. And then if there are no questions, again, we'll flip to the next page. And the last set of rates, actually item number 14, the rates that you see, again, highlighted in yellow, represent rates for our senior supplement. And again, we'll get into more detail discussion about the cost share. The rates that you see here are the full rates for 2012 and 2013. The senior supplement rate, which is the first set of rates there in yellow, you can see there's been just a very, very small decrease, very small, 20-some-odd cents, I believe, from 2012 to 2013. The senior supplement without the drug plan, there's a 2% decrease. And then the rates that you see in the last portion of that section are the rates that we have in place for those dependents who belong to our Medicare-eligible retirees. And again, those rates from 2012 to 2013 represent a 4.5% increase. But again, these are just the full rates. We'll have discussion in a minute about how we're going to divvy up the rate, how much the employee and retiree will pay, how much actors will pay. This is simply just, these are just the full rates.
And the 4.5% increase is approximately the amount of our increase in cost.
For the EPO and PPO plans, that's correct. The increase to the accrual rate.
So with that, then I'll ask for a motion to approve items 4 through 14.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Exhibit B2, these are the rates for 2013 that we're proposing for the PEBC dental plan. We currently offer 2 plans.
Now, okay, I've got that on the sheet, but it's not on the stuff that was handed out, I believe.
Do you have that, Commissioner Johnson? Do you have a B2?
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 Yeah.
B2?
B2?
Yes, sir.
No. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
For B2? Okay. Thank you, Judge. So the 2013 rates, this is our PEBC dental plans. We have 2 dental plans, this plan, and then our HMO plan. So the dental plan, the PEBC dental plan for 2013, we're proposing a 5.1% increase in rates. Again, these rates are 100% employee funded, and these are the rates that we believe are necessary to fully cover claims incurred under this plan.
Well, there again, we don't have a choice on this one, do we?
No, sir.
I move approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
So if you'll flip now to C1.
Everybody's telling us what to do this morning.
That was not my intent, Commissioner. I would never do that.
You are the doer, and sometimes you are the doee.
So there are a lot of numbers and a lot of colors. I hope that your exhibit has colors on it, because that'll help me to explain this a little bit. So tell me that you see a yellow column.
Yes.
Okay. So the yellow column represents monthly rate increases over current rates. So the yellow column would be monthly rate increases over current rates. Okay. The very top chart represents employee medical rates. So we're going to talk about that first. So in your pink column, you see the employee contribution. So you'll see that at the very top, we have EPO, medical plan coverage, and then right below it, we have a green bar. It says PPO, medical plan coverage. So the pink column represents what we're proposing in the way of employee premiums for 2013. So just to make sure we're all reading it correctly, for the EPO plan, we're proposing for employee-only coverage, $107 a month. For employee spouse, $309 a month. Employee children, $235. Employee family, $383. So that's what we're proposing for 2013. Right below it, still in pink, you'll see the monthly increase or monthly premiums that we're proposing for PPO participants. So it's $97, $281, $215, and $353.
And what percent increase is that?
It was 87, so it went to 97, so it would be slightly over 10%.
And Commissioner Johnson, that's correct, Judge. For this year, for 2012, if you look at the PPO rates, the 97, the 281, the 215, the 353, those rates, those are the rates, with the exception of the $97 that employees pay on both plans, EPO and PPO, this year in 2012. So it'd be 87, 281, 215, 353. That's
I
what
might make a comment at this point in time. This year, as well as in last year, 2 or 3 years ago, we did away with our HMO plan, which was a fully insured plan, and brought everybody into the county's self-insured plans. and we had two plans, an EPO and a PPO. The EPO, we priced them the same, even though the EPO was what would be called a richer plan. It would pay more, the employee would have to pay less. Because we were afraid that if we priced our PPO plan, which ultimately might mean that the employee would be out of pocket more dollars, that folks from coming over from the HMO would just immediately go to the cheapest plan. And we were very concerned that some of our employees might not study and look at the benefits. We've continued that, but what that has meant is that we have significantly more folks who now have said, hey, look, if it's going to pay the same, then why shouldn't we be in the plan that pays the most and that we pay the least? All of the other members of PEBC have priced the EPO higher than the PPO. Again, because of the fact that under those two plans, if you're in the EPO plan and you go to get sick or you go to the doctor, our plan is, the EPO plan is actually going to pay more of that cost than what the PPO plan will pay. This year we're proposing, and when we've been told again by our consultants, you know, we keep talking to them, how do we reduce our cost? How do we encourage the employees to take more responsibility in managing their medical? What they have said is you need to differentiate between the EPO and the PPO. And so what you're going to see this year is an effort for, on average, to basically say we're going to charge about $10 per month more to be in the EPO plan than in the PPO plan per member. So if it's an employee, that's 10. If it's an employee and spouse, that may be about 20. If it's employee and family, it may be about 30.
Correct. And you can see the increases, Judge and Commissioners, again, if you look at the yellow column.
Look at the EPO plan, yellow column.
And so, Commissioner Johnson, to your question, the employee then will be looking at a $20 increase in their premium over what they pay today. For employee-only coverage, for employee spouse coverage, an additional $28 per month. Employee children, an additional $20, and employee and family, an additional $30. And if I could, Judge, just one, I guess, a couple additional comments about sort of where we've been and where we're moving, what we're moving towards. I want to remind the Court that there were no increases in 2010 and 2011 because employees didn't receive pay raises. The Court did not deem it appropriate to pass along any sort of increases in premiums. So we held premiums steady in 2010 and 2011. Employees did see an increase in 2012. But as the judge pointed out, in 2012, this year, the EPO and PPO are priced exactly the same. So we're proposing for 2013 to hold the PPO costs, premiums where they are, with the exception of the employee-only tier, and then to increase at the premiums I've just discussed, the EPO coverage. And I guess the final note that I would make, final statement that I would make is that when you look at employee family coverage, for both plans, the EPO and the PPO plans, we're looking at family rates under $400 per month. And I would argue that that's pretty unusual with any employer to see. Certainly not all employers, but many employers, you see much higher premiums for family coverage. And then the last statement, we've been focusing in on the pink column because, again, that shows rates, proposed rates for next year. If you take a look at the far right column, at least on my exhibit, it looks like it's like a light blue. You see the total accrual rates. So those are the actual rates that that we have to set aside between the employee and the county to make sure that we can fund claims. So just to give you some perspective, while we're talking about a $383 a month premium from the employee, we're looking at a total accrual rate of over $2,100 a month. That's how much that we have to set aside for individuals on the EPO plan who have employee family coverage. So yes, it is an increase, But again, we're looking at a total accrual rate of about, well, it's over $2,000 a month.
No, the number in the white column to the left, is that the number of the employees subscribing to each plan?
That's correct. That's the census. That's exactly correct.
So the pricing of the EPO and the PPO may not be consistent, may not be constant from year to year. This year may be equal, but next year it may reverse, depending upon the number of subscribers.
Correct.
And
That's right.
we're, at some point, when we look at ourselves compared to the other members in PEBC, we have a much higher percentage in our EPO plan than we do in the PPO plan as compared to those other entities. And their premium difference between the two plans is somewhere between $5 and $10. So again, what we're trying to see is whether or not that $10 actually steers someone from one plan to another, and that's going to be more critical, I think, as we begin in the future to address other items where we're trying to associate a cost to a particular plan or to a particular option that may be within our plans.
What % increase did we have last year for employees?
The accrual rate, Commissioner Johnson, and you're asking about last year, I can tell you the accrual rate increased 4.5%, will increase 4.5% for 2013.
I think his question is between the employees, what the employee paid in 2011 and what they paid in 2012. Did we increase the premiums?
We did. Yes, we did increase the premiums, and I have that.
Did we increase them from 78 to 87?
We increased, hold on, I have it here.
It was 78 to 87. So that was about a 10%, about 10%.
We went from 78 to 87, from 261 to 281, from 205 to 215, and from 329 to 353.
And our consultants, again, are telling us that medical costs are going up about 9.5% this next year.
But our cost for providing this insurance only went up 4.5% this year, didn't it?
The accrual rate increased by 4.5%, yes, sir.
But there was a 3.5%, what was the 3.5%? I think we did actually, there was something about a 3.5% and a 4.5%, total 8%. And it had something to do, I thought, with our savings in a particular area or return in a particular area. But I don't remember exactly what that was. Confusion, I see confusion.
Well, I'm not, Joyce, do you recall what the accrual change was from 2010 to 2011? Do you recall? Okay.
I don't, what 3.5% are you talking about?
Well, I have to go back and look at it, J.D. I know that when they were talking to us about this overall deal, what they looked at, they indicated to us that we had a 4.5%. Come forward.
So the 10% increase from FY11 to FY12, 2011 to 2012, was absorbed by the county, the difference in increase.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
The county paid for it, the employees did not pay for that increase.
Correct.
Yeah, we have not held true to our.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
It went up from 78 to...
Yeah, we set a matrix, especially for our retirees, we set a matrix in place several years ago that talked about years of service.
What's 3.5? I don't, what was that?
Projection for this year, coming up 3.5.
It says the projected, what happened was is we had budgeted more, and so our projected per capita costs, they were estimating was going to be lower than our budget amount by 3.5%. At the same time, the projected 2013 total cost increase is 4.5%. So they were estimating an 8%. Part of why we didn't have to take the full 8% is because we had budgeted 3.5% more last year than what actually ended up coming to pass.
But Commissioner Wynn, I want to make sure that we've answered your question. For all of these tiers, and again, we've talked about every column, I think, except maybe the one you're asking about. The purple column represents the employer contribution. So the employee contribution plus the employer contributions equals total accrual. So obviously, whatever the total accrual is, the employee is deemed responsible for some portion of that, and the balance the county does, the county does cover the balance. I think that was your question.
Right, I just want to make sure that the increase that we incur last year, which is 2011, 2012, that increase in premium wasn't split between
No.
the employee and
No.
the county.
No.
The county basically paid
The county took the
100%.
majority of the increase, but that's historically been what the case has been. We pass along some increase to the employee, and then the county will pay the difference. We'll
Yes.
pick up the difference.
Did we pay for the difference? Did we pay 100% of the increase? Did the county pay 100% of the increase?
We did not last year because we increased our premiums a little bit. We did in the previous year because in those years that we did not give an increase, we absorbed all of the increase of 8%,
Correct.
or whatever the
That would have been
increase were. Another example would be is if you look at that employee, that first line that went up $20, the 107 is about 12.7% of the total accrual of 842. When we asked them what the, what their target, or not the target, but when they took our target, United Healthcare came in and said, what percentage are most companies charging their employees for that? It was somewhere between 18 and 20%. So we're still, at this point, significantly below what our peer group is charging for that particular area.
This proposed rate structure is probably going to have the effect, as Commissioner Wynn mentioned a little while ago, of driving people from the EPO plan to the PPO plan. Is that, if that should happen, is that going to help us with this phantom number out there called unfunded liability?
No.
These are all active employees.
No.
This has nothing to do with our, this is,
Yeah, but the unfunded liability
doesn't have
No,
anything to do
no.
with these folks.
it's calculated using the current employee census and actuarial tables as to what might happen to that current employee census.
That's correct, but what I would remind you of, Commissioner, again, right now we're talking about just how much of the total accrual the employee pays, right, and then how much the county pays. That really doesn't have anything to do, the total is the total, and the total is what impacts the unfunded liability, not how much of it the employee pays or how much the county pays.
And that will be really held true based upon percentages for retirees, not for actives. You're right from a standpoint, I think it's the percentage is what drives that calculation under the retirees, I believe.
What drives the calculation, it seems to me, is the portion that the county is actually obligated to pay.
Well, let's be careful because we're not obligated to pay anything. What we had traditionally paid.
We set the rates year to year, so we have no obligation year to year. However, once we adopt a rate, once we adopt a contribution split, then we're obligated to that for that year.
Yes.
Now, does lowering the county's percentage of contribution and raising the employees' percentage of contribution affect that unfunded liability? No.
For retirees, yes. For active employees, no. Because the calculation is based upon percentages established for retirees, not for the actives.
Absolutely, but the 2,000-pound gorilla in the room is that $354 million number. Once people retire, and GASB's insistence that we deal with that in a balance sheet kind of way, that we accept it as a hard and fast liability. That doesn't have any direct effect on our current employees, but what is driving these rates once we go through the process is trying to deal with that unfunded liability number.
I understand that, but what I'm trying to say to you is these particular rates that we're addressing here are for active employees, and the percentages are different for active employees than what they are for retirees. And it's the retiree percentage that they use to determine our unfunded liability. It doesn't have anything to do with our active employee. Now, the numbers, but still those active employees have to decide how many of them are going to take our retiree insurance once they retire, and then the percentage of our participation versus theirs changes. It's not the same as it was for the actives unless they potentially have, right now, I think, greater than 30 years of service.
The increase, the monthly rate increase described in the yellow column, is that increase been included in the purple and whatever the color column?
It's included in the pink.
Pink.
Yes, sir.
It's actually in that pink.
It's a part of the pink, yes.
Okay. So that increase represents the increase on the employee's part.
That's correct.
So it's $87.
So then if I could cover and we'll come back if you have additional questions. The chart in the middle represents dental premiums, and I think it's been pointed out that we don't really have a choice as long as we're going to offer dental coverage. Again, these premiums are 100% funded by employees. Again, you see the employee contributions, monthly contributions in pink, and the yellow column indicates what the monthly increase will be. You can see there's no increase for our what we call our DHMO, and you can see the respective monthly increases for the PPO dental plan. And then, of course, at the very bottom, you see our vision premiums once again, and in yellow, you see the monthly increases. And again, the vision coverage is 100% funded by the employee and the retiree. And as you pointed out, Commissioner, when the white column is the census, just the number of employees that or retirees that participate in the plans at those tiers.
Now, before we move on into the next section, do we want to approve the employee medical, EPO, and PPO rates for 2013? We've already approved the dental, I believe, the employee and retiree dental, or have we?
Move approval of C1.
Which one?
C1.
C1.
That series of.
We don't have C1 on, we don't have that on our electronic version.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. It's at the top.
Now, that's the one that's increasing them, all of them over 10%.
Yeah, you missed.
The EPO. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question, which
It's a 10%.
let's take the EPO plan for example. The monthly rate increase for employee only is $20.
Yes, sir.
They will be paying $187.
107.
107, right?
Yes, sir.
So their previous rate was
87.
87. that is an increase of like 23% for the employee only. And then if on the employee plus family, then the rate increase about 8%. Am I right?
Yes, and the reason that goes back to the whole discussion that we had, remember, about the EPO, PPO. We had decided to take the employee rate up $10 for the PPO. Well, in order to, again, make that difference between the EPO and the PPO, if we were going to increase our PPO by 10, we needed to increase the EPO by an additional 10 in order to achieve that distinction. And that's why you've got that at that particular level. And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that we've provided a 3% increase to our employees. That 3%, if you figure a salary of $30,000 is about a $900 increase. $20 here on an annual basis would be about a $240. So at least it's tight, but at least we have given them an increase in one area to offset some of the cost of the increase in the medical premium.
What benefit would the employee lose if they move from the EPO to the PPO to take advantage of the discount, of the lesser price?
If they don't get sick, they're in great shape.
Yeah.
If they do, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. First of all, both plans, the EPO and the PPO, have the exact same network of providers, so there's no loss in terms of a provider. The primary difference is that the EPO plan has primarily co-pays, so there are co-pays for office visits, there are co-pays for prescription drugs. There are no deductibles on the EPO plan. On the PPO plan, in contrast, while employees do have co-pays for office visits, there are some services that are subject to a deductible, and that deductible is $500. Services such as if an employee has an inpatient hospital stay. So on the PPO plan, if you have an inpatient hospital stay, you'll have a $500 deductible, after which the plan pays, I believe, 90%, and the employee pays 10%. So Joyce, jump in, because I don't have all of this committed to memory.
So they're going to pay the first $500, and then above that $500, they're going to pay 10% of the additional cost.
I'm sorry, it's 80-20. 80-20, not 90-10. Looks like it's 80-20 after the deductible. Again, in contrast, if you have an inpatient stay on the EPO plan, today, let me find that. Hospital, inpatient hospital, you have a $200 copay per day, and it maxes out at $800. So the most that you, that's the EPO. The most you'd be out of pocket would be $800, and that's if you had a 4-day stay.
So would it be fair for us to assume, okay, that an employee would manage his or her medical cost, control it much better, more predictable, by paying an extra $240 a year in premium to stay in the EPO plan? Otherwise, they would face the uncertainty of paying deductibles that is a lot more than $240.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good question. I think you have to look at it on a individual basis. Would that be enough? Would a $20 a month or $28 a month increase, is that enough to drive me to the PPO plan or cause me to select the PPO plan instead? I don't know. What I can tell you, Commissioner, is that our enrollment in the PPO plan has been pretty consistent from year to year. As the judge said, we priced the EPO and the PPO the same for the past several years. We've priced them the same for the past several years. We've had some movement, but we've not had significant movement. Prior to that, we did have a pricing differential. It wasn't much of a pricing differential, but we had a pricing differential. And even then, our enrollment stayed pretty consistent. So we've not seen dramatic spikes. in enrollment, whether the premiums have been the same or if they've been a little bit different. Now, whether or not the increases that we're proposing, $20, $28, $30 a month, is that enough to drive that enrollment? I don't think so, but I don't know. We won't know until enrollment is over.
And the only thing we can look at is our partners in this PEBC, and their percentages are significantly different as enrollment in PPO versus EPO, and their premiums are about the same difference. And so it's hard to believe that someone would be influenced that much by a $10 a month, but something is causing, and our folks, our consultants, our United Healthcare, our claims administrator is saying, you need to have a different price. They've been telling us this for a couple of years, and they're saying you need to have a different price between your EPO and your PPO, and so this is our attempt at saying, okay, we'll see.
Again, my concern is this. I just want to make sure that I express some of my questions and concerns. Is the insurance plan here that we are talking about is a part of the overall employee compensation or benefit. It's not just, it is one component.
That's
right?
correct.
And when did we do the comprehensive compensation study?
I believe 2008.
Okay. And I was told that we found that our overall salary structure was in the 50th percentile or lower.
But was it below P50, Robin?
Our salary structure is running normally about P25, some of them up to P50, but around P25, and our benefits study came back showing our benefits were at P50.
Okay, so our salary is below the 50th percentile, and the benefit package, including insurance, is in the 50th percentile. And we are going to conduct another study to verify and update that fact.
We are, yes.
So perhaps, I mean, this is just a suggestion, is it make more sense for us to adjust our rate to about the equivalent of the increase last year, about 4, 5, 6%, whatever. And that way we can have time to gather facts from that study, because whatever we make an increase in here, it has a negative effect on our overall compensation package for our employees, because the two goes hand in hand. It's just a thought out there.
I guess the comment I'd make is I believe we're getting eaten alive by our benefit costs right now.
About what?
By our benefit costs. As I said, United Healthcare, we met with them last week. The indication was that if they looked at governmental as well as companies specifically within Tarrant County, that the average percentage that the employees were paying for their portion of the premium that they were paying was 18 to 20%. With these adjusted rates, our employees are still paying about a little over 12.5%. So if they were paying about what both governmental employees as well as public, large employers were paying within this area, instead of looking at 107, it would be probably closer to 157. In addition, most of the cities in this area have much higher deductibles than what we have. Now, we're going to look at the plan. I'm skeptical of the fact of believing that 50% of the entities out there have better health insurance benefit plans than we have. I'm just very skeptical of that. I can tell you that, the accounting firm that I used to be a part of, plan is not that. They have much higher deductibles. So I guess what I'm just saying is I think these are numbers that are going to be illustrative of us moving toward that. We're going to be doing an awful lot of work this next year. I was very frustrated and not at all happy with the unfunded liability number that they came back with yesterday. I really had hoped that it was not going to have jumped significantly in the 2 years, but it went, and this is for our retirees. This doesn't have anything to do with the actives, but our retiree unfunded liability went up 100, and it went up over 50%. So we have some I think, very tough and hard decisions to make that are going to occur over the next couple of years, and I think what we're trying to do here is to catch up a little bit for the 2 years of 2010 and 2011, where the county absorbed most of the increase in health care costs. So, I would hope that we would hold tight with the numbers that are recommended by this benefit committee as we've gone through this.
And Commissioner Wynn, I want to correct myself. I obviously need glasses, which I'm denying and fighting, but the EPO...
We have a vision problem.
I know. I need to use it. The EPO plan, I mentioned that we're talking about primarily co-pays. There are some services that require co-insurance, and then after that co-insurance is 90% to the plan and then 20% to the employee, not 80-20. It's 90-10 on the EPO, and then it's 80-20 on the PPO after the employee meets their deductible.
If we
For
go
some
through with this
services.
rate, how much is that going to affect your unfunded mandate?
For active employees, it's not going to affect it one iota.
If we don't go with 10% and go back to 4.5%, which is what the cost went up,
It's going to
how does
cost
that
us.
affect
It's going to cost us out of our budget.
How?
Well, that means the county is going to pick up that additional cost because the accrual is going to be the same.
Do you know how many dollars that is? About.
Now, the contribution that the employees make on an annual basis, does that go to the reserve as well?
Yes. It goes into there, and then we pay out claims.
It goes to a pile of money, right?
Which we've still got to address what kind of a reserve we think we need. We have about $7 million in there right now. 6 to 7.
Well, it's 10 today, but the proposed 2013 budget lowered it to 6 something, a little less than
Because we're already tapping into it a little bit out of the, we're expecting the lower because we are assuming a bigger part of the.
The differential is about $400,000 from the 10% to the 4.5%, would be approximately $400,000 on a $52 million.
Again, specifically, my worry is this, okay? For the employee only, we're talking about 23% increase in premium, okay? And I understand the reason we do that is to distinguish between the EPO and the PPO plan, right?
Yes.
But that distinction that we are trying to make may not work.
May not work in that we may not see an increase. It may not. It may not.
It sure won't work if we don't put any difference in.
Right. You see, I understand. But
And that's, all I'm saying is, we don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
What we do know is that it's worked. Something has caused it to occur in our partner entities. And the only difference that we can detect.
Because the plans are exactly the same.
Because the plans are exactly the same.
the only difference is the split 90-10 and 80-20.
But it's the same.
But it's the same for each of the entities. We all have the exact same medical plans. The only difference, again, is the premium, how much the employee pays, and then what the county picks up.
record, I'm paying that 20. And I'm more than, I know that I'm making more, and my 3% represents more. But I
Just
am
for the
in that
record, I'm not taking advantage of county insurance, so I'm not personally involved in this. I'm only looking out for those employees that make $1,200 or $1,500 a month.
Well, JD, I think we all are, but I think bottom line on this deal, if we don't do something to try to get our arms around this, it's going to get to the point to where we may not so much for the active, because I think we'll always offer something for the active, but I am scared to death that we're going to get to the point to where we're not going to be able to offer anything for our retirees. Other questions?
When does a decision have to be made on these rates?
I believe we have, do we have until the end of the month? We just have to get, Commissioner, we have a deadline that we're working against so that we can get our rates to the fulfillment house so that they can run the copies and then send out our enrollment packets, and I believe that deadline is?
I actually got an extension till next, if the court wanted to delay this and make a decision next week, that would work, but not beyond that.
And again, it just has to do with getting our information to the fulfillment house to get
Might help
packets
some
out.
of us that haven't sat in on your committee, the judge has, but we haven't. Get a little better feel and understanding of what's going on here. Because I still have some.
And that's maybe what we, and I think it would be great if we just had a workshop in the future. Now, that's not going to help us this year. Your representatives have been there. But we can, in the future, just make this a workshop item, and that way the whole court can be a part of it. I mean, that may be the better way to do that. It's just, that way everybody can, because it's nothing that any of us are.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. It's not fun at all. They're very tough decisions, and I really think it would be a good idea for all five of us to be there. Because it's not something that, I'll guarantee you, I'd love for us to be able to sit up here and say we're not going to increase anything. Unfortunately, with medical costs continuing, the estimate yesterday was it's going to run 9.5% next year, and it's going to continue to go up 7 to 8 in future years. So what it comes down to is we can absorb it, we can pass it along, and then eventually what the consequences are that has to our overall budget. So.
Anybody else want to delay it for a week?
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
So, you want to delay everything, or do you want to go on past this, or?
Y'all go on past this.
Oh, gosh, okay, we can do that. It's only going to get harder, but we can
Yeah,
go on.
It's only going to get worse.
But we can certainly talk about it, and then you all can decide.
Anything will be more educated.
Okay, we can do that. Thank you, Joyce. So then let's move to Exhibit C2. And C2 represents, again, the format's the same. You see in the yellow column monthly rate increases. You see you have EPO and then a PPO column. So those are the monthly rate increases that we're proposing for 2013. Now with this group, what we call our pre-65, our early retirees, of course these are individuals who retired before they reached the age of 65 and before they are Medicare eligible. The county adopted several years ago a plan whereby we subsidize to a greater degree those retirees who have more county service. So we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tiers, and it's a little bit difficult, but if you look in the green, you can see that's the category for retirees who leave with less than 10 years of service. Do you see that? This is number 1, medical retiree under 10 years of service. Retiree pays 100%. Now, if you look to your left at the census column, you can see that we have no retirees. And if you look at the rates, that might be a good indication as to why. So Again, your pink column is the retiree contribution. Your purple column is what the employee contributes. You can see for those retirees with less than 10 years of service, there's no contribution. And then you can see the total accrual. So for this group, which again we have no participants in currently, this group would pay those rates that you see in the total accrual column, and those are monthly rates. And I see the frowns on your faces. Those are very high rates. These rates represent the actual rates as proposed by the consultant at least for the various tiers, the amount of money that we have to set aside to cover claims, if there are claims. The second category are retirees with 10 to 14 years of service. The third, 15 to 19. The fourth, 20 to 24. And the fifth, 25 plus. So those retirees, those individuals who leave with 25 years plus of service, which is where the majority, if you look at your census, we have 124 in that category. Do you see that in the white column? So that's where the majority of our early retirees are. And you can see their premiums, their monthly premiums in the pink column for EPO and PPO coverage.
Tina, let me ask a question. When we originally set the matrix in place several years ago, were those percentages not different than what we're currently using?
Yes, the percentages were different. Those percentages at that time were, I have them here, if I can find them. Of course, for less than 10 years of service, there was, 100% the retiree costs. For 10 to 14 years of service, the retiree paid 75% and the Tarrant County 25%. For 15 to 19, 55% to the retiree, 45% to the county. 20 to 24, 40% to the retiree, 60% to the county. And 25 plus, 20% to the retiree, 20%, and then 80% to the county. So obviously at the 25 years and up category, we were paying with the original matrix right at 80%. Looks like we're paying about, 85%.
What was the 20 to 24%?
20 to 24 was 40 to the retiree and 60 to the county.
And the reason I say that, and the reason I asked them to do that is, again, you can see what we're currently having the retiree pay. For example, in the 10 to 14, the retiree, we're requiring the retiree to pay now 55% versus what we had agreed to several years ago of 75%, and that's as a result of a couple of things. 2 years ago, the federal government basically said, we're going to pay you this money if you keep your premiums to these pre-retirees the same and you don't increase them. And they were supposed to pay us about $960-something thousand. So we've got that accrued as though we were supposed to get it, but guess what? The federal government hadn't written the check yet. But we didn't raise the rates, and that was in 2010. 2011 came along, and we said, okay, I think we can raise the rates in 2011, but golly, if we go back to this schedule again, it is going to be such a massive increase that there's no way we're ever going to be able to get back to the matrix that this court approved. So this year, we're proposing some pretty massive increases. But as you can see again, even in the rates that we're proposing, we're still, for example, in the 10 to 14, the retiree under our proposal is to pay 55%, where according to the policy that we set, they should be paying 75%. So the rate should actually be even higher than what we are proposing. The same thing, the 15 to 19, they're paying 40, or we're proposing that they pay 40, when in effect our policy actually says that they should be paying 55, 29 versus 40. and 15 versus 20.
But
So
I'd like to point out that when we adopted those matrix percentages, it was based on applying those percentages against the blended rate that included actives and retirees. The rates in 2011 for the retirees went up 60%. So to apply the percentage that we applied to a number that was 60% smaller to a number that's 60% bigger doesn't work. If we went back and applied the percentages that we had in the matrix to the blended rate, we would not be seeing the kinds of increases that are on here.
That's correct.
Have you done that since you obviously have got a very strong opinion on that?
I have.
Go ahead and pass them out.
I don't have it with me, but I do have it. I have a copy of it.
Well, go ahead and make copies for everybody, so that we can look at this and study it the next week. I mean, again, this was something that Ron brought up. Again, the group looked at it and said, we're going to stick with what we've got. Ron has got his own schedule that he can put out and put forward, and I would ask that he make copies and give it to everyone after the meeting, because I don't think we're going to adopt a deal on this one.
Make sure I read this right here.
Okay.
The census shows a total of 211 subscribers.
Yes.
We're going to have 211 people on.
Correct.
Plan.
On this plan, these are retirees who are less than 65. The next exhibit, Commissioner, that we haven't gotten to are 65 and older retirees. And we have over 500 in that group. So this is just one group of our retirees. These are our young retirees. Yes, sir. So again, as the judge has explained, we've tweaked the cost share percentages some, and as Ron pointed out, one of the reasons that that was done, again, was when the matrix was originally developed, we were looking at blended rates, and then we moved away from the blended rates so that we could more accurately reflect the true cost of retiree coverage. And so, therefore, the numbers that you see, this is the true cost. So we don't have any questions about this. I don't believe we're going to be approving anything today. So do you want to move on to the next one, the next exhibit? So the next exhibit is C3, and Commissioner Wynn, this is our last category of retirees. These are the retirees who are 65 and older, and therefore eligible for Medicare coverage. And we offer two plans to this group of retirees. We have a Medicare supplement plan, and we have a Medicare Advantage plan. The Medicare Advantage plan works, and actually it's an HMO. Okay? And you can see the census for the Medicare Advantage plan. It's the third block of information, and we have 174. Of course, the census was as of 6/1 who are on the Medicare Advantage plan. If you go back up to the first section, it's our senior supplement plan. The way that this plan works is that the retiree has their Medicare Parts A and B coverage, and then this plan supplements that. So in effect, retirees who elect this plan coverage walk into a doctor's office, they show their Medicare card, they show their senior supplement card, and their services are covered at 100%. So it's a very attractive plan, as I think is reflected in the census count. We have 322 who participate in that plan. In terms of rate increases, again, you're looking at the yellow chart. For the first group, the senior supplement plan, we're not proposing any rate increase in 2013. The reason for that is that there was no, and what I failed to say is that these are fully funded plans. These are not self-insured plans. So basically, we pay the premiums, the retiree pays their portion, and then that covers claims, and we're out of it. So there was no rate increase, or very small rate increase, for a couple of cents, I believe, and so we're not proposing any rate increase to this group. So their premiums are the pink box, would be those premiums in effect for 2013. And again, that represents 0 increase to the retiree. The section right below it represents those rates for dependents who are not Medicare eligible who are covered by the seniors in the senior supplement plan. The rates again in pink would be the monthly rates for those dependents. And Joyce, I believe is that the total rate? Just answer me from there. Is that Retiree Plus?
Yes.
Okay.
See, it pink is the total rate. The
Okay.
premium plus the accrual.
So, for example, if I have retiree-only coverage on the senior supplement plan, if I cover my spouse, my monthly premium is $846.35. That covers me, that covers my spouse, with prescription drug coverage.
And that's with the retiree being over 65, that's the dependent being.
Under 65. That's correct. And then the third section, again, is the Medicare Advantage plan. You can see those monthly rates. Retiree only, $61.66. Retiree spouse, $123.31. And again, no increase in premiums being proposed for 2013. The last group that you see are what we call our, I'm sorry, who are these? Oh, these are dependents for the Medicare Advantage retirees. And you can see we're actually proposing a decrease in 3 of the tiers for that group and an increase in the Retiree Plus Family rate. I know it's a lot of information.
Would you explain the difference between the senior supplement and the retiree advantage?
Yes, sir. The senior supplement plan is designed to supplement Medicare. And so those retirees who select the senior supplement plan are required to have Medicare Parts A and B. And so when retirees come, or potential future retirees come to counsel with us, if they are 65 and older, or if they're under 65 and disabled and eligible for Medicare, we counsel them to go to Social Security and get Medicare Parts A and B, because you need that to participate in this plan. This is a fully funded plan offered under United Healthcare. So the employee has Medicare Parts A and B when they retire. They also have this senior supplement plan. So this plan is designed to cover what Medicare does not cover as long as it's a Medicare eligible expense. So I head off to the doctor's office under this plan, and I give them my senior supplement card, and I give them my Medicare card, Parts A and B. And that retiree leaves that appointment with 0 out of pocket.
Explain the Part D.
The Part D is the drug coverage, and our plan has drug coverage that comes with it. We have rates.
One doesn't need the Medicare Part D.
One is not required to have the Medicare Part D, and I think we've only had one individual who has elected not to have the drug coverage, Part D coverage, because she had it elsewhere. But we have to have the plans, have to have them in the system, in case someone elects, like this former retiree elected not to have drug coverage because she had coverage, I believe, under Medicaid. So that's the senior supplement plan. In contrast, Commissioner, we have the Medicare Advantage plan, and it works, it is. It's an HMO. You have a network of docs that you select from. You don't go outside of the network. If you go outside of the network, it's not going to be a covered expense. So you operate within the network of docs in the network. You select a doc.
Are these United Health docs?
It's a United Healthcare.
It's Secure Horizons.
Secure Horizons. So you select your doctor, you have your appointment, and you will have co-pays. So you don't, it's not 100%, right? So you go in, you give them your cards, and you would have your co-pay. So you would walk away from the visit having a co-pay for the appropriate service. And I failed to mention on the senior supplement plan, there is not a designated network of docs. You can see any doc as long as they see Medicare patients. That's the only stipulation. So basically, the retirees in the Advantage plan are just operating within a network, and they have co-pays for most of their services, including co-pays for prescriptions.
Is it an extensive network?
How many counties do you recall?
There's, what, 8 counties?
I think 8 counties.
And you have to live in the area.
I can tell you we don't get complaints, Commissioner, from those retirees who select this plan. But again, just in terms of census, the majority of our retirees select the senior supplement plan.
That's because you walk out the door paying $0.
Well, that's part of it. And again, you don't have a network. So if your treating physician is not in the Medicare Advantage network, then most likely a lot of our retirees are going to select the senior supplement because they can continue to see their doctor. There's not that restriction. So those are the primary differences.
Other questions? We will put this back on the agenda for next week.
Okay.
And Mr. Manius, as we begin to move forward, I hear the court saying that they want to be a part, so let's plan all of our workshops on Tuesday afternoons or whatever day will be available, so that, and we'll just, in the future, treat all of our health benefits meetings as a public meeting and bring those forward so that the whole court can participate in that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Beecham? No, Mr. Wetzel. You must have something.
Good morning,
Good
Judge
morning.
Whitley and Commissioners. I'm bringing back to you today the 2012 Master Interlocal Agreement between Tarrant County and the Texas Conference of Urban Counties Tech Share Program. This was something we carried forward from last week. I have fully vetted this document and fully supported and request approval at this time.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brewer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Still is. We have 2 items for your approval this morning. The first one is approval of interim financing for fiscal year 2013 for the Women, Infants, and Children's Grant, the WIC program.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item is approval of Public Health Department's fiscal year 2013 fee schedule.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Beecham.
Yeah, could we just stipulate that Arkansas lost and move on?
Sir?
Could we just stipulate that Arkansas lost and move on?
Yeah, because the 4Ds aren't going to help me up here this morning, so. We have 9 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2012-149. This is our annual contract for medical examiner supplies. Recommendation would be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors meeting specifications. We did include a 2-page document prepared by the ME's office, which shows those items that did not meet specifications, if you have questions about those.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3, after skipping number 2, is a bid award recommendation for bid 2012-152. This annual contract for the purchase of our hybrid vehicles. Recommendation would be toward a per enterprise basis, awarding to the 4 primary vendors meeting specifications as shown in your court communique.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 3 is another bid award recommendation for bid 2012-153, signing a contract for preventative maintenance on our ice machines and dispensers, coolers, and walk-in freezers. Recommendation would be to award a per enterprise basis, selecting our primary and secondary vendors as shown again in your court communique.
We have a motion is second to approve item 4. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 5, bid award recommendation for bid 2012-159, signing a contract for miscellaneous laboratory testing for Health Department ME's office. Recommendation would be to award to Quest Diagnostics. Bid received from LabCorp should be rejected for not signing their bid document.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Bid award recommendation number 6, bid 2012-162, annual contract for monitoring for burglary, fire, or safes. Recommendation to be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding again to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 7, bid award recommendation, bid 2012-163, annual contract for welding equipment, supplies, and industrial and medical gases. Recommendation be to award on a pre-enterprise basis to Metroplex Service Welding. We did receive a bid from Ashley Taylor Products. Again, recommending rejection for not signing their bid document.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 8, bid award recommendation, bid 2012-167, annual contract for lumber and building materials. Recommendation would be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding to Teague Lumber and Plywood Company on certain groups. Bid received from Cowtown Materials, did not sign their bid, should be rejected.
Move approval. Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 9, bid award recommendation for bid 2012-168, annual contract for a truck-mounted telescopic excavator. Recommendation be to award to Kirby Smith Machinery on a per enterprise basis.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Last item is item in regards to bid 2011-112, annual contract for RCP. We brought this to court for renewal recommendation approval on May 1, 2012. After that approval and renewal by the court, we have a precinct support meeting. It was determined at that meeting, which we meet pretty much quarterly, the precincts and purchasing, we'd like to recommend rejection or cancellation and rebid. We're adding box culverts, new lengths of pipe, and safety end caps, and that's the recommendation this morning.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any appointments today? You want to come forward, Ms. Green? Come on down.
Well, I've got one.
I'll make it fast. We're requesting the Commissioners Court approve the interlocal agreement between the City of Hurst and Tarrant County for the acquisition of right-of-way along Harrison Lane from Pipeline Road to Sherry Lane, and authorize the judge to sign the same.
Move for approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for letting me come up.
I've got
You have an appointment?
Yes, I do. Carolyn Sims appointed. Need to appoint her to the Colleyville Tax Increment Financing District Board.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any other? Being none, then we'll move to the claims, including the addendum.
Move for the approval. Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Mays.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have 3 items to bring to the court this morning. The first concerns an update on the Regional Coordination Committee. Mr. Skinner is here to introduce the speaker.
Judge, Commissioners.
Today we want to provide you with a brief summary of the activities that have been ongoing related to the Planning for Livable Military Communities project. This is a project that's been commissioned by the Regional Coordination Committee. As you may be aware, Steve Townsend and I are the county's representatives on this committee. And today we have with us Dan Kessler and Tamara Cook with the North Central Texas Council of Governments. They're going to provide you with a little more detail of what's been going on with this particular project and how it's benefiting our communities. And we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. But I'm going to turn it over now to Dan Kessler.
Good morning.
Morning, Judge, Commissioner,
Just barely.
Administrator Menace. Great to be here. Dan Kessler, Assistant Director of Transportation with the Council of Governments. Particularly nice to be here after being out on the public meeting trail for the last 2 weeks talking to citizens about toll roads and managed lanes. So it's good to be before the court this morning.
Not on 360.
No. I do want to take this opportunity as a proud resident of Fort Worth and Tarrant County to thank the commissioners and the court for all you do. I don't think we get enough opportunities to do that. Thank you for your leadership and your time and your passion to what you do. As I shared with the Tarrant Regional Transportation Coalition in my 30 years at COG, I don't remember an era in which we were doing so much work in Tarrant County. And I think that's occurring because of the growth we've had and the growth that we continue that we're going to have. One of these real opportunities, and I think we have many, is a project that we're working on in northwest Tarrant County with the city of Fort Worth, 6 other suburban communities, our military base. I really wanted to come and join Tamara this morning. We really started this project out in an effort to work with the base, but it's really grown into something much bigger than that. I think we really are going to have the opportunity to affect the quality of lives of a lot of citizens in northwest Tarrant County before we're finished, and eventually the whole region. We're going to get this project started, but I hope to be back to you in a year or 18 months and really have laid out a program of projects that we think are very viable options. We need the county. You're a critical partner. We hope with the regional transportation, the council, and the local governments, we can look at some significant improvements to some of these corridors, 183, 199, some of these Roberts Cutoff, and some of these other critical arterials in the community. So we do need the county as a partner with this project. We look forward to working with you. Your staff's heavily involved. I want to commend them so far. They're doing a great job. Let me turn it over to Tamara. She's our principal in charge of the project. She's going to give you a little quick highlight, and we can answer any questions for you.
Good morning or afternoon.
Good afternoon, yes, and in the interest of time, and because my stomach's growling, I'll be brief. As Dan mentioned, we're really excited to bring this project to you all, and we've had great participation so far from the county staff, and we really appreciate that participation. So just kind of quickly moving through my slides here, you all are familiar with what used to be known as Carswell Air Force Base. That's a key historical community asset that we have in this region. It's not just a Northwest Tarrant County regional asset, it is a Metroplex regional asset. So it's something that we want to keep around in this community, in this region, the base, and it's partnering a facility, Lockheed, to the west of the base. This graphic is very poignant in that it shows from 1940 to 2009, there's been significant development around the installation out in this area. The communities have had lots of development pressures, particularly through post-war 1945, 1950s, 60s. Lots of development going on in this area around that time. There's still a lot of development going on in this area, and one thing that the Council of Governments has worked over the last few years with the Navy, in this instance because it's a naval air station now, is looking at compatible development and developing land uses and transportation and other things that are compatible with the current and future mission of the military base there. And I think this might take just a second because it's a very large file that... Oh, there it goes. Okay. So as I spoke, we've had a lot of projects that we've been doing in this area over the last 6 to 7 years. Council of Governments has really been the administrator of multiple items. The first one there being the Joint Land Use Study, which was a study conducted several years back that looked at compatible uses in and around the base, looking at safety and noise concerns primarily. in 7 cities, and Tarrant County was also a partner in that study. An output of the joint land use study was something called the Regional Coordination Committee. The chair of that committee, Paul Payne, has been to Mayor's Council to present to all of the mayors alongside with Captain Bennett over the last few years. This committee, Tarrant County sits as a member on currently, and it's really tasked with looking at compatible development in the area around the Naval Air Station. And it's a leader nationwide, something that is not happening in a lot of other military communities. So we are very unique in that respect and very lucky as well. So kind of one of the natural outputs of that committee was looking at trying to gather up some additional funds to do some additional planning studies around the base, looking at some key things such as housing, transportation, and doing some comprehensive plan updates for some of the smaller communities that surround the base. One of the things that we went after in 2010 was a housing and urban development grant. A total project cost of $800,000 is what this project is, planning for livable military communities. And that is made up of $640,000 grant that we did receive from HUD, and then $160,000 that the Regional Transportation Council graciously provided to match the federal funds that we received. And the overarching goals and guiding principles of this project is really looking at the city visions, the city goals for their development, their economic development, their long-term visions, and coupling those with the military mission at the base and long-term compatibility with future development in this area, and making sure that future development considers the mission at the base so that we can ensure that the base stays around. This slide's a little hard to read, but we have lots of project partners, the county just being one that has been integral to making this thing happen. We've got ISDs involved from this part of the region. We have lots of chambers of commerce. TxDOT is a key partner. It's a wide variety of stakeholders that we've got. Lockheed Martin, of course, and then, of course, the base has also been an integral partner as well. I'll just very quickly run through the major tasks that we're doing with these funds. I did mention that we're looking at housing. We are conducting a housing and retail feasibility study. One of the things several years back that the base did was a housing study that showed there may be a potential shortage of housing that was suitable for military personnel. They've got very strict guidelines in terms of costs that they can, housing costs that they can pay out of their salary. So we wanted to look at this part of the region and see what trends in terms of housing were going on, age of housing, what future development opportunities there may be. And currently, as of right now, we have completed an economic market study to look at industrial market trends, retail market trends, all sorts of market trends in this area compared to the greater Tarrant County and Dallas-Fort Worth area. This is just some of the things that we have done so far. The economic market analysis, as I mentioned, we've got lots of data and lots of data comparing this part of the region, or part of Tarrant County, with the rest of Tarrant County. And then we've also done some surveys of community participants in terms of what sort of housing they would like to see in this part of the region. One of the other components of this study is looking at transportation options. This part of the region does not have a whole lot of public transportation access at this point. Most of the city partners, River Oaks, White Settlement, Sansom Park, do not currently have Fort Worth Transportation Authority services in their cities. Fort Worth obviously does. So one of the things that we wanted to look at in the study was transit feasibility, and would public transportation be feasible for this area, and how could we make that happen financially, and trying to find funding for something like that. We're looking at bicycle and pedestrian access. Lockheed has a very active bicycle organization that has a lot of ideas for commuting to and from Lockheed from surrounding communities. So we've and the cities also have a lot of interest in looking at bicycle and pedestrian facilities in this area. And we were just out last week doing corridor improvement plans for State Highway 183 and State Highway 199. We had over 100 participants come through the doors in 3 days, which was phenomenal. Lots of stakeholders coming out providing comments. Tarrant County staff was out providing comments on future visions for those two corridors, possible economic development opportunities that we could look at. It was very successful, and we look forward to bringing those findings to you. One of the things we have already done in terms of the transportation piece was do a technical study. This is just a snapshot, an example of one of the things we were looking at is existing level of service in this part of the region, and then looking at the forecasted level of service. And as we all know, traffic is just going to get worse over the next year, and we're not going to be able to build ourselves out of congestion, but this is really a snapshot of, with current demographic trends and forecasts for the year 2035, what do we expect this part of the region to look like in terms of transportation services? And as you can see, the red, there's a much more significant red on the 2035 than in the 2012, meaning that levels of service is going to decrease over time. Some of the other transportation things that we've done is improving base signage. One of the issues that we've heard over and over again was that it's hard to find the base, and actually my director, Michael Morris, got lost finding the base and actually wound up at Lockheed.
This is an excuse for being late.
Yes, yeah. So one of the things that we've worked with TxDOT on, and just recently in the last few months had new signage installed along 820 and I-30 just prior to exiting for the base. And I think that the base is extremely happy with this, and I think it will help all of the folks that they have coming in from other parts of the region and other states at finding where they need to go. And then I mentioned that we had our corridor improvement plans meetings last week that were extremely successful. There's two other things that I'll go over quickly. We're doing a look at ordinance compatibility. So we're looking at building codes and energy codes and seeing how those can increase energy efficiency while also mitigating aircraft noise for future development. We've got jets flying in this area that are extremely loud. There will be new jets flying in this area over time, and different missions of the base changing. So we want to look at how those codes can match up and provide an ordinance that the local governments can adopt. And then the final thing that really wraps all of this effort that we're doing, the housing transportation, the ordinance review, and then several other key little pieces. We're wrapping all of those into comprehensive plan updates for 6 of the smaller cities. Fort Worth does their own comprehensive plan update every single year, so that was a little more than we could bite off with the budget that we had. But they are an integral partner and will be definitely at the table through this entire process. But this is kind of the culmination of this project over the next year that we will be working on with the local governments. And we've had lots of community involvement. As I mentioned, these were open houses that were held in early June out at Lake Worth and River Oaks. White Settlement did a great job advertising for us. We had over 100 attendees at those open houses. We had over 100 attendees last week at our public meetings and improvement plans for the state highways in this area. So a great effort on the city's behalf and on COG's behalf at really getting the word out, and in the county for that matter, at getting the word out. So we still have a lot more public involvement coming up, and we encourage the county to stay involved and engaged. And I believe that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to take any comments or questions that you all have.
Thank you very much for the work that y'all
you.
did on this. I've heard a lot of good things about it.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Mr. Court, a week ago to item B. This is an update, monthly update of the hospital district. Mr. Hurley is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Or afternoon.
Good afternoon. Since I am standing between you all and lunch, I will make this most brief.
Oh, I thought you said you were going to buy it.
Kind of caught you there, didn't he? Kind of caught you off guard, didn't he?
No, he did catch me off
Not
guard.
often are you held speechless.
Very good. Touche. I will be happy to buy lunch. I just may not be there, but I'll buy. Wanted to, first of all, thank Commissioner Johnson, Mr. Manias, and the sheriff's staff for all the hard work on the interlocal agreement. You all will see that next week back in its legal form, but I appreciate their work. And really all that is trying to put the hospital district and the sheriff's office on the same page for correctional health. And we did it during a good time. It's not during crisis. It was just enumerating what services would be provided. And I want to thank both of the leaders from the county and Mr. Manias for all their work in trying to put that together. Bill Whitman played a key role back at JPS, and that's very helpful. Also, if you'll look at the backside of the St. Joseph's building, you'll start seeing some of that building now coming down. They've started working on the outside structure of the building, so the bricks are coming down on the backside of it. You'll start seeing more and more of that between now and January. And that building is right on budget and right on time. And so that's due in part to our Director of Construction, Angie Morgan, who does an incredible job. Also wanted to say that we don't have at JPS a large legislative agenda. We will work with Mr. Mendez and the county to make sure that we don't obviously conflict with anything, but support any issues that you have if we happen to be down there. And also wanted to thank Commissioner Wynn. There's a meeting that he's working on in his area of meeting with some of the legislators on healthcare issues. We, as you well know, have a new legislative delegation for the most part, and I think giving them updates on issues is always helpful. So we will be happy to do that, and I'll make myself available to any of the legislators. We've tried to figure out the timing with some of them still having elections in November and then quickly trying to prepare themselves for January, especially if they're new. And that's really all I have for y'all. Just wanted to give you that update and tell you that I think things are going well, and I appreciate the cooperative spirit we continue to work under.
1115 waivers continuing forward. If anyone in the court, we had a meeting again yesterday on that with the county judges. Projects are coming in on those particular regard, and we're hoping, we're getting I think a much better response now from some of the providers in the different counties.
Are any of the counties not participating?
Parker County.
Parker County is, of the 9 counties that we have in our region, Parker County is the only one that has decided at this time not to participate. I hope that maybe they will change their mind, but at this time they're not participating. All the others have, even some of our smaller counties like Erath County, they have 5 projects that they've submitted, and we're helping them work on that. In fact, the consultants are out in the counties today working on their projects. And to the judge's point, my compliments to Texas Health Resources and Baylor and HCA and the other facilities we have in Tarrant County. They have really stepped up and taken a different attitude, or a better attitude, towards the waiver and the value that it can bring. I'm very impressed with them.
So again, you're looking at basically 3 different programs. The old DISPRO program, which is what we've had historically in the past. The DISREP program, which are these projects that we're referring to, fall into the DISREP program. And then there's the uncompensated care program. The DISREP and the uncompensated care are new programs. We send 42 cents up in what we call, you'll hear the term IGT, which is an intergovernmental transfer. So we send 42 cents up, the federal government sends $1 back. Under the old DISPRO program, we would have to send up about 82 cents to get $1 back. And so in the past, that IGT dollar for the DISPRO, the 5 or 6 big public hospitals have put up about $500 million. Mm-hmm. The kind of the reconciling deal, or the deal that we made with and that money comes back to the private hospitals within those areas, or really all over the state.
All over the state.
And so some of our dollars are going up. Some of it's coming back to our private hospitals. Some of them are going to other private hospitals around the state. When I say our dollars, I mean JPS's tax dollars, so they're Tarrant County tax dollars. For 2013, through Mr. Early and the other big districts, they agreed to go ahead and continue that program to the tune of about $300 million, just a little bit north of $300 million.
Yes, sir.
For the 2013 year. So again, for 2013, we're putting money forward. That money is being spread throughout the state, some of which, or a good part of which, comes back to this particular area. But in 2014, what we've in effect said to the state is we're not sending Tarrant County money to other parts of the state anymore. That money, the DISPRO part, is going to go away, and what we'll replace that with is the DISREP projects within Tarrant County or uncompensated care within Tarrant County. And so the private hospitals, the providers in Tarrant County who have been getting money, hopefully we'll be able to get more money because we'll still have the same money available, but not only due to higher leverage, but also the fact that we're not sending money to Austin or D.C. for it to come back to places outside of Tarrant County. Ultimately, our providers inside of this county will get a higher amount of money, but it is going to require projects, it is going to require goals, and them reaching those goals.
And one of the things, and you articulated that very well, it's not only complicated, but the money that we send up that comes back to the taxpayers, we get all that money back. I think to the judge's point, and it's well taken, that money probably should stay here in the beginning, and we should work on projects in our local area, which we do. We do now, and I think we do a good job with that. But we've told the state now with the new waiver and with the importance of putting up intergovernmental transfer monies to other projects, we ought to really focus on funding those. And the old DISH funds that the judge spoke of should probably fade out. And we were compromising and letting that fade out over time. It could have faded out right now, but we let it fade out over time. We had numerous meetings with the governor's office, but in 2014, we will no longer continue with that program, and that's our firm stance, and I think that's going to be a lot of commissioners' court and county judges' postures throughout the state.
At the same time, the smaller counties are the counties that do not have public hospitals. They have a percentage of their budget that is supposed to go to indigent care, as well as providers, and so they can work through these projects, through the DISREP, through the uncompensated care, and they can, IGT, in a governmental transfer, money to the federal government and bring that money back. So we're not preventing them from continuing to be able to receive money. We're simply saying that for those counties outside of your big five, they're going to have to step up and begin to participate in the program with their funds and draw down funds.
And I think in the long term, it's going to be very beneficial for healthcare providers, both public and private, and for counties throughout the state. I think you'll see a very strong benefit. So those talks, those conversations have gone very well. We're happy to continue to brief all staff and any of you that wish it. It's an ongoing evolution as the state puts out more rules and that the feds put out more rules. We'll continue to keep you up to date. But I appreciate the efforts, and I think our region is doing exceptionally well. So I'm happy to deal with any questions you all may have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. We'll expect a check for lunch.
It's in the mail.
Finally,
Pick up her tab, he'll send you a check.
Yeah.
Finally, Your Honor, we could go to members of the court, go to item C. This is an update on the West Nile virus. Dr. Parker is here to address the court at this time.
Hello and good afternoon. Thank you for your opportunity to address and update you all on the current West Nile virus situation. I'll be brief. The total human case infection number in Tarrant County is 259. We are continuing to see a low level of report activity from illness in earlier months. The North Central Texas region is also seeing the same same low-level trend that we've all seen historically in the past. Positive mosquito pool testing remains low. Spraying has been completed in the unincorporated areas of Tarrant County that were accessible. There were some issues with gated communities and road construction road blockage due to water over the roads. And so once those things are addressed, then they'll be able to fully complete that, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Parker.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
And we will recess our open meeting to proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. And return from closed session, there being no business to conduct at this time. Right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
We're adjourned. Well, I got to think, wait a minute.